Hello, everyone. Here we are. We're going to do Leviticus. We're going to start with chapter 15. I just want to say one thing. I was ill yesterday from lack of sleep and sinuses, bad combination. Then depression hit me. And it was just, I couldn't even fight to feel better to get up here and talk with you. With that said, I think I'm going to be taking Sundays off just so I don't burn out. So we'll do 6 days, then Sunday you guys will go to church or whatever goes on, and that will be my day off, okay? So that I don't burn out. And I was thinking about that yesterday, so we'll see. Okay, so that's how we'll start it, with Sundays off. All right, so here we go. Leviticus 15, and remember, these are all the ordinances and the laws that he wants the Jews to learn from him now, okay? Here we go. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when any man has an unusual bodily discharge, such a discharge is unclean. Whether it continues flowing from his body or is blocked, it will make him unclean. This is how his discharge will bring about uncleanness." Quote, "Any bed the man with the discharge lies on will be unclean, and anything he sits on will be unclean. Anyone who touches his bed must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they'll be unclean till evening. Whoever sits on anything that the man with a discharge sat on must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Whoever touches the man who has a discharge must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they'll be unclean till evening." So you can't sit on his bed, you can't sit on a chair he's sat on, you can't even touch him, or you've got to wash up your clothes, and you'll be unclean until evening. If the man with the discharge spits on anyone who's clean, they must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Now, I'm not sure why anybody would spit on another, but of course, the Lord has to bring it up just in case, because people do spit at each other. But it also could be a cough with spittle coming out, or, just speaking and spittle flying, okay? Everything the man sits on when riding will be unclean. So riding a donkey, a camel. Whoever touches any of the things that were under him will be unclean till evening. Whoever picks up those things must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they'll be unclean till evening. Anyone the man with a discharge touches without rinsing his hands with water must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. This is called spelling it out, folks. The Lord is spelling everything out so there can be no misunderstanding. A clay pot that the man touches must be broken, and any wooden article is to be rinsed with water. When a man is cleansed from his discharge, he's to count off 7 days for his ceremonial cleansing. He must wash his clothes and bathe himself with fresh water, and he will be clean. On the 8th day, he must take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons and come before the Lord to the entrance to the tent of meeting and give them to the priest. The priest is to sacrifice them, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. In this way, he will make atonement before the Lord for the man because of his discharge. When a man has an emission of semen, he must bathe his whole body with water, and he'll be unclean until evening. Any clothing or leather that has semen on it must be washed with water, and it will be unclean till evening. When a man has sexual relations with a woman and there is an emission of semen, both of them must bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Okay, this is in preparation to tell the Jews that they are not to worship him with sex like the pagans do. Okay, so he's making a clear separation between having sex with your wife, your woman, and coming into worship in the evening. Okay, there's a time of uncleanness after having sex. Okay. When a woman has her regular flow of blood, the impurity of her monthly period will last 7 days, and anyone who touches her will be unclean till evening. So while a woman is having her period, she's to be left alone. Anything she lies on during her period will be unclean, and anything she sits on will be unclean, because this is all part of discharges, okay? Anyone who touches her bed will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they'll be unclean till evening. Anyone who touches anything she sits on will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. Whether it's the bed or anything she was sitting on, when anyone touches it, they'll be unclean till evening. This is a clear separation between those who have discharges and those who don't, okay? So discharges, the first one just said discharge. Now, I don't know, I'm assuming that that would be some kind of, venereal disease, maybe. But it could even be diarrhea. A person could be discharging diarrhea, okay? So you're not going to sit on the places where they sat. And then the second one was the delineation between sex being kept separate from coming into evening worship, or whatever they do at evening. If you have sex, or if semen gets on anything, whatever's going on there, there is separation until you are clean in the evening. You have to bathe, and then you can do whatever when you are clean in the evening time. And then the last one is talking about a period, a woman's period. All of those things that I mentioned, well, semen is personal, so you certainly don't want to sit anywhere where there has been semen. It's just personal, okay? And I'm assuming that that's kept to a marriage bed, okay? And you wouldn't be sitting on somebody's marriage bed. You probably wouldn't, okay? But I don't know, All right, so, and then the last one is the period, which is blood. So it's like God's just saying all this stuff is to be kept to the person or people who are dealing with it. And anyone else who gets involved with it is unclean until evening and must bathe and wash their clothes. All right, and then they're unclean till evening. When a woman has a discharge of blood for many days at a time, other than her monthly period, so she might be hemorrhaging, or has a discharge that continues beyond her period, she will be unclean as long as she has the discharge, just as in the days of her period. And any bed she lies on while her discharge continues will be unclean as her bed during her monthly period, and anything she sits on will be unclean as during her period. Anyone who touches them will be unclean. They must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they will be unclean till evening. When she is cleansed from her discharge, she must count off 7 days. And I'm going to tell you something. Some women have, for whatever reason, and I'm going to give you an example, have periods longer than 7 days, okay? I knew somebody who it was never really stated that they had an unworking ovary, but they had 14-day periods every other month, okay? So sometimes it's like that. So if that person was on that kind of a cycle, then they would not be allowing anyone to sit or lay down where they had been for 14 days, okay? And I believe it was because one of the ovaries wasn't working. All right, so here we go. When she is cleansed from her discharge, she must count off 7 days, and after that she'll be ceremonially clean. On the 8th day, she must take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons and bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest is to sacrifice one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. In this way, he will make atonement for her before the Lord for the uncleanness of her discharge. You must keep the Israelites separate from things that make them unclean, so they will not die in their uncleanness for defiling my dwelling place, which is among them. So God is saying he can put them to death for defiling where God is, okay? These are the regulations for a man with a discharge, for anyone made unclean by an emission of semen, for a woman, and most of us to this day know to shower after sex, okay? And that's all this is saying, is when you've had sex, go take a shower, okay? I mean, very few people walk around in it, because we know what it entails, and, we know how it leaves us, okay? The condition it leaves us in. These are the regulations for a man with a discharge, for anyone made unclean by an emission of semen, for a woman in her monthly period, for a man or a woman with a discharge, and for a man who has sexual relations with a woman who is ceremonially unclean. So if a man has sex with his wife during her period, he's unclean until, he bathes, washes his clothes. So that would probably be a mistake. And what's interesting about the period is it gives the woman a week where she's not having sexual relations, like 3 weeks on, 1 week that is her period. So that's interesting, okay? But we all know that people make love when the woman is on her period. So that's unclean also. That's what the Lord is stating here. Okay, Leviticus 16. And I want to say one more thing about me taking Sundays off and having that one day. Because, I've told you, as much as I love reading and I enjoy this and I feel so connected with you, it's still work. It takes work to do this. It's not a just sit down and read and be done with it. It's an hour and a half process for me, getting ready, setting up, reading, reviewing, and then uploading, okay? So it can be even 2 hours. So because it is a job or a work that I do for the Lord, I have to have that one day for me. I have to have at least one day. So the beauty of taking Sunday off is simply that, number one, it will help me to not burn out. And number two, it gives all of you a chance to catch up. If you've missed something, you can go back, okay? And I know some people are about a day behind me, and that's fine. Whatever pace you're at is fine. But, and usually I don't know, I have no idea who watches my videos unless you give me a thumbs up or a heart, okay? That's the only way I know. And I can generally tell, what rhythm people are on. But that one day for me gives you a day to catch up. Okay, Leviticus 16. The Lord spoke to Moses after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron who died when they approached the Lord. You remember they brought what was called strange fire to the altar. It wasn't approved fire. It was something strange, and the Lord killed them outright. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell your brother Aaron that he's not to come wherever he chooses into the most holy place behind the curtain in front of the atonement cover on the ark, or else he'll die." So he's telling him, tell Aaron to stay out of the most holy place, which is where the ark resides. "For I will appear in the cloud over the atonement cover." This is how Aaron is to enter the most holy place. He must first bring a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He's to put on the sacred linen tunic with linen undergarments next to his body. He's to tie the linen sash around him and put on the linen turban. These are sacred garments, so he must bathe himself with water before he puts them on. From the Israelite community, he's to take 2 male goats for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. Aaron is to offer the bull for his own sin offering to make atonement for himself and his household. Then he's to take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. He's to cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for the Lord and the other for the scapegoat. The scapegoat is the one that's going to be let free, but he's going to carry all the sins of the people as he runs out to the wilderness. Aaron shall bring the goat whose lot falls to the Lord and sacrifice it for a sin offering, but the goat chosen by lot as the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to be used for making atonement by sending it into the wilderness as a scapegoat. Aaron shall bring the bull for his own sin offering to make atonement for himself and his household, and he's to slaughter the bull for his own sin offering. He's to take a censer full of burning coals from the altar before the Lord, and 2 handfuls of finely ground fragrant incense, and take them behind the curtain. He's to put the incense on the fire before the Lord, and the smoke of the incense will conceal the atonement cover above the tablets, the 10 commandments, of the covenant law, so that he will not die. He is to take some of the bull's blood with his finger, sprinkle it on the front of the atonement cover. Then he shall sprinkle some of it with his finger 7 times before the atonement cover, before the Ark of the Covenant that had the angels on it. He shall then slaughter the goat for the sin offering for the people, and take its blood behind the curtain, and do with it as he did with the bull's blood. Now, behind the curtain is the most holy place, and the people never go there, okay? So he's showing him how to be sanctified when he goes behind the curtain, because I guess because of the family members that sinned, there has to be a purification. In this way, he'll make atonement for the most holy place because of the uncleanness and rebellion of the Israelites, whatever their sins have been. Okay. He's to do the same for the tent of meeting. So this just may be an instruction for him as the priest, the chief priest. He's to do the same for the tent of meeting, which is among them in the midst of their uncleanness. The tent of meeting is the place where all of them can gather. No one is to be in the tent of meeting from the time Aaron goes in to make atonement in the most holy place until he comes out. Then they can all come into the tent of meeting, having made atonement for himself, his household, and the whole community of Israel. Then he shall come out. I think it does have something to do with his sons, since this chapter opened that way, the ones that were killed. Then he shall come out to the altar that's before the Lord and make atonement for it. He shall take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat's blood and put it on the horns of the altar. He shall sprinkle some of the blood on it with his finger 7 times to cleanse it and to consecrate it from the uncleanness of the Israelites. When Aaron has finished making atonement for the most holy place, the tent of meeting and the altar, he shall bring forward the live goat. He's to lay both hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites, all their sins, and put them on the goat's head. He shall send the goat away into the wilderness in the care of someone appointed for the task. The goat will carry on itself all their sins to a remote place, and the man shall release it in the wilderness. Then Aaron is to go into the tent of meeting and take off the linen garments he put on before he entered the most holy place, and he's to leave them there. He shall bathe himself with water in the sanctuary area and put on his regular garments. Then he shall come out and sacrifice the burnt offering for himself and the burnt offering for the people to make atonement for himself and for the people. He shall also burn the fat of the sin offering on the altar. The man who releases the goat as a scapegoat must wash his clothes and bathe himself with water. Afterward, he may come into the camp. The bull and the goat for the sin offerings, whose blood was brought into the most holy place to make atonement, must be taken outside the camp. Their hides, flesh, and intestines are to be burned up. The man who burns them must wash his clothes and bathe himself with water. Afterward, he may come into the camp. This is to be a lasting ordinance for you. On the 10th day of the 7th month, you must deny yourselves and not do any work, whether native born or a foreigner residing among you, because on this day atonement will be made for you to cleanse you. Then before the Lord you will be clean from all your sins. It's a day of Sabbath rest, and you must deny yourselves. It's a lasting ordinance. The priest who is anointed and ordained to succeed his father as high priest is to make atonement. He is to put on the sacred linen garments and make atonement for the most holy place, for the tent of meeting and the altar, and for the priests and all the members of the community. This is to be a lasting ordinance for you. Atonement is to be made once a year for all the sins of the Israelites. And it was done as the Lord commanded Moses. So I'm sure that's a holiday that we have all heard of. I just don't know what it is. Let's see if it says it here. Oh, it says the meaning of this word in Hebrew is uncertain. Hold on. Let me just go back here. was something to do with the scapegoat. Okay, let's move on. Someday I'm going to do a study and try to find out what the different parts of the animal mean, like the fat, the long lobe of the liver, the kidneys, because if you notice in some of the sacrifices, certain of the insides are to be burnt and some are to be burnt outside the camp, thrown out. All right, Leviticus 17. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to Aaron and his sons and to all the Israelites and say to them, this is what the Lord's commanded. Any Israelite who sacrifices an ox, a lamb, or a goat in the camp or outside of it, instead of bringing it to the entrance of the tent of meeting to present it as an offering to the Lord in front of the tabernacle of the Lord, that person shall be considered guilty of bloodshed. They have shed blood and must be cut off from their people." In the camp or outside of it instead. Okay, so if they're sacrificing in the camp or outside, in other words, if they're sacrificing it anywhere other than where the Lord has commanded the sacrifices be, in the tent of meeting, they're to be cut off from their people. And we know that means the opposite of gathered to your people, which means in death, you go to your people, you have honor, you're buried in your family line. If you're cut off from your people, you're an outcast from your own family line. Okay, you're not honored. All right. This is I still have to look into it a little more because it's really weird and it's really heavy. This is so the Israelites will bring to the Lord the sacrifices they're now making in the open fields. They must bring them to the priest, that is, to the Lord. So in other words, no sacrificing like outside of the law now. I mean, the Lord's putting all these ordinances together. He wants the sacrifices. Don't go off somewhere and make a sacrifice. It's just not acceptable anymore. They must bring them to the priest, that is, to the Lord, at the entrance to the tent of meeting and sacrifice them as fellowship offerings. The priest is to splash the blood against the altar of the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting and burn the fat as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. They must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols to whom they prostitute themselves. I don't know how I missed that the last time we were in here, but I'm going to look that up. This is to be a lasting ordinance for them and for the generations to come. So apparently there were goat idols. I'll have to look into that. Say to them, any Israelite or any foreigner residing among them who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice and doesn't bring it to the entrance to the tent of meeting to sacrifice it to the Lord must be cut off from the people of Israel. So even if you're a foreigner, that's it. You're not part of the group anymore. Say to them, an Israelite or any foreigner residing among them who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice and doesn't bring it to the entrance of to the tent of meeting to sacrifice it to the Lord must be cut off from the people of Israel. Oh, I already read that, didn't I? Yes, I'm sorry. I will set my face against any Israelite or any foreigner residing among them who eats blood, and I'll cut them off from the people. For the life of a creature is in the blood. And I've explained that to you before. Our life is in our blood. All those little red blood cells shooting around, that your life is in them. Okay? And the life of animals, when you spill blood, you're spilling someone's life. Okay? And you've directly attacked their life. I mean, we know that, obviously. But the point I'm making is it says right here, because the life of every creature is in its blood. So, if you didn't know that before and you just thought, well, my life is in my flesh, bone, and blood. No, it's not in your flesh or your bone. It's in your blood. That is why I have said to the Israelites, you must not eat the blood of any creature, because the life of every creature is its blood. Anyone who eats it must be cut off. So he's saying, go ahead and eat the muscle, because that's what we eat in meat, is we eat, the breast muscle and the thigh muscle. Go ahead and eat that, use the bones for soup or what have you, but don't drink its blood. And this is what Satanists do when they're drinking blood. They're drinking the life of the person to embolden their own life, okay? And sometimes they're trying to get high from it. They're trying to get something out of it, okay? So that's why you have people that drink blood, because they're drinking the life of the person. Or we can take it away from Satanism and go to I wanted to say the Aztecs, who used to sacrifice people. But you know what? I'm going to stop because I don't remember if they were drinking the blood. It's specifically satanic, because the goal of the Satanist is to get the life of the person. I think with the Aztecs, they would take the heart out while it was still beating, and I'm not sure if they would eat it or not. But I know Satanists do stuff like that. And it's so that there's some warriors that used to eat the hearts of their enemy and that way be conquering their enemy. And all of that is just foul. Although the heart is a muscle, but if you drained it of blood, that would be different. But if you're just eating it with the blood in it, that's disgusting. That's drinking somebody's blood. In other words, ingesting their life. And the Lord is saying, don't do that. So even with animals, you're not ingesting their life. You're using their flesh for nourishment, but you're not drinking their life, okay? That's not right. That's what the Lord's saying. Leave their life out of it, okay? All right. Because the life of every creature is in its blood. That's why I've said to the Israelites, you must not eat the blood of any creature, because the life of every creature is its blood. Anyone who eats it must be cut off. So that's how serious it is. You'll lose everything. You'll lose everything, your name, your honor, everything, if you do something like that. You're going to be cut off. You will not be gathered to your people in death. Heaven has decreed against you, okay? And clearly, Satanists are doing something that heaven has decreed against them. Until they repent, they're doing something that is worthy of the hell that they are going to face, that they're going to earn. They're earning hell. Anyone, whether native born or foreigner, who eats anything found dead or torn by wild animals, like roadkill for us, must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and they'll be ceremonially unclean till evening. Then they'll be clean. But if they don't wash their clothes and bathe themselves, they'll be held responsible. So it's not telling us not to eat roadkill, but I remember in a chapter back in the whatever we were reading, I was saying, we just know to not eat stuff like that. Stuff like that. Roadkill here is usually used for dog food. Okay. All right. Leviticus 18, and this will be our last one for tonight. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, I am the Lord your God. You must not do as they do in Egypt, where you used to live, and you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Do not follow their practices. You must. Now, the Egyptians were doing lots of what we would call satanic rituals, okay? Do not follow their practices. You must obey my laws and be careful to follow my decrees. I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees and laws, for the person who obeys them will live by them. I am the Lord. No one is to approach any close relative to have sexual relations. I'm the Lord. So here the Lord is changing it up. The gene pool isn't so clean anymore, and he's ending that intermarrying with the Israelites. He's ending that, and he's ending the, I think having more than one wife too. I don't know about that one. But I know he's saying right here, no more sexual relations with a close relative. Do not dishonor your father by having sexual relations with your mother. She's your mother. Don't have relations with her. Do not have sexual relations with your father's wife. That would dishonor your father. Do not have sexual, so maybe they do have, still have more than one wife. I don't know. Do not have sexual relations with your sister. Now, if you remember back in the beginning, they were marrying their sisters and their brothers, but it's over now, okay? Do not have sexual relations with your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether she was born in the same home or elsewhere. So no half-sisters, no half-brother, none. Just leave it all alone now. Okay. I mean, this is hundreds and hundreds, if not, let's see, Noah, I think Noah and Moses are almost 2,000 years apart. So this is a long time after they were all intermarrying. Okay. So perhaps it had stopped and now the Lord is just putting it in stone, so to speak. I don't know. I mean, you know how we say it's written in stone? Well, that's like the Ten Commandments written in stone. So we'll just hear what we're hearing here and know that this is the cutoff point. This is where it's a command now. There's no quarter for doing this kind of stuff. Do not have sexual relations with your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter. That would dishonor you. Do not have sexual relations with the daughter of your father's wife born to your father. She's your sister. Don't have sexual relations with your father's sister. She's your father's close relative, so don't sleep with your aunt. Don't have sexual relations with your mother's sister because she's your mother's close relative. Same thing. Don't dishonor your father's brother by approaching his wife to have sexual relations. She is your aunt. Do not have sexual relations with your daughter-in-law. She's your son's wife. Don't have relations with her. Don't have sexual relations with your brother's wife. That would dishonor your brother. Don't have sexual relations with both a woman and her daughter. Don't have sexual relations with either her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter. They're close relatives. This is wickedness. And you know, there seems to be a thing, still rather forbidden, but I've seen it even on TV where it's a mother and a daughter sleeping with one man. That is disgusting. That is so disgusting, it's hard to fathom. Do not take, you know, if you've ever been close to that situation or done something like that, repent, get cleaned from it, you know, just repent. I'm just putting that out there because I don't know who listens, okay? Do not take your wife's sister as a rival wife and have sexual relations with her while your wife is living. Now remember, Jacob had Leah and Rachel. They were sisters, but now here we are 2,000 years later, and it's saying, don't take your wife's sister as a rival wife and have sexual relations with her while your wife is living. You can marry her after your wife dies, but don't do it in front of her. Do not, I'm saying that. Do not approach a woman to have sexual relations during the uncleanness of her monthly period. So for all of us that have done that, that was not right, okay? Do not have, I guess the woman is sequestered, you know, as far as uncleanness for 1 week out of every month. Do not have sexual relations with your neighbor's wife and defile yourself with her. Don't give any of your children to be sacrificed to Molech, for you must not profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Okay, that's the first we're hearing of this. The sacrificing of children by the pagans, okay? And that's going to be a running theme that we're going to hear through the Old Testament, okay? The Lord is going to be very surprised, very shocked that the Israelites copy the pagan nations doing this very thing, okay? So he's saying right here, do not give any of your children to be sacrificed to Molech. And Molech is usually a large owl or a large bull sitting down like a man with his hands out and a bowl, a huge bowl. And they used to roll their children down the arms into the bowl, which was lit with fire. And they would burn their children. That's what the pagans were doing for good crops. And I've had people say, oh, you know, those Christians, they persecuted those innocent pagans. No, there is no pagan tribe anywhere that you can find throughout history that did not sacrifice their children by fire for a good crop. Okay, they were ignorant people at the very least, if not filthily evil, okay? All right, so here we go. I'm going to read it again. Do not give any of your children to be sacrificed to Molech, for you must not profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That's detestable. Do not have sexual relations with an animal and defile yourself with it. A woman must not present herself to an animal to have sexual relations with it. That is a perversion. And, you know, we've all heard that down in Mexico, women present themselves to donkeys, and it's like your forbidden private show that they do down there in Mexico. And the Lord is saying here, it's perversion. Do not defile yourselves in any of these ways, because this is how the nations I'm going to drive out before you became defiled. Even the land was defiled, so I punished it for its sins, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. But you must keep my decrees and my laws. The native born and the foreigners residing among you must not do any of these detestable things. In other words, I don't care if you're a foreigner, don't use that as an excuse to do these disgusting things amongst the Israelites. You're under the same law as them. Don't do it. For all these things were done by the people who lived in the land before you, and the land became defiled. And if you defile the land, it'll vomit you out as it vomited out the nations that were before you. Everyone who does any of these detestable things, such persons must be cut off from their people. Keep my requirements and do not follow any of the detestable customs that were practiced before you came, and don't defile yourselves with them. I am the Lord your God. Okay, so that's pretty clear, and we're going to hear more about this. I love you very much. Keep praying. I'll see you tomorrow. I love you. Have a good evening. Good night.